So in this day and age where athletes, human athletes, are wearing data collectors when they run and when they work out and when they train, and it all goes through the computer, and they can tell whether or not they're off a little bit for whatever reason. I mean, they can verbalize it, but we have the same technology for horses. So then in taking it out of the vet's hands, which has got to be a really difficult situation for those vets, because they're basically, if they're wrong and they say a horse can run and it breaks down, they're screwed. If they're wrong and they say, uncautiously, we should give this horse a little extra time, or you need to come back and breeze it for me, what have you. Do we take it out of their hands and have horses as yearlings, have these wearables, so that way we're getting information on these horses, and then when they're 2-year-old and 3-year-old, if it's consistent within a certain window of plus or minus 3, whatever the proper number should be, then at least we have a baseline, so that way everyone knows, okay, going into this race or going into this breeze or under tack show, this horse was within the right system for its specific gait. What do you think about something like that?
Well, Todd and I are participating with a couple of these studies right now. They're going to follow like 6 of our horses that are 2-year-olds that are going to Todd. We have 2, one a cardio test. We got the test that you just said. Yep. I'm all for that. But I'm not so sure, if that test, how accurate it would be. Maybe it would be. I'm in agreement of trying it and testing it. I'm in agreement of, listen, I'm an entrepreneur. Your dad is probably one of the most famous entrepreneurs. I love that he teaches at Babson at 85 years old. I mean, I do his class every year. It's one of the best days I have with him. And we're talking about trying things new. I love that. But we're not ready to say, hey, this is, God forbid the test doesn't work and all of a sudden more horses break down because of the test. I mean, you guys told me how great synthetic and Tapeta were. How are we doing at Woodbine right now?
Right.
Oh my God.
That's a small sample size. Like over time, synthetic is very clearly the safest surface.
You know what? Maybe. I mean,
it's not maybe. It's a fact.
So Joe, should we go to synthetic hey Joe, you know what? There's less breakdowns if you scratch everybody also.
I mean, I'm not advocating for 0 horse fields, but if you want to look at the services, synthetic is clearly safer.
Just synthetic?
What's that?
Are you advocating for just synthetic?
No, I think it makes sense as a third surface, but the idea that just because there's a couple of horses breaking down at Woodbine now means suddenly it's not safe. Like,
hold on. Is it a couple horses, or when they cancel a weekend card or they cancel a couple of days? It's a couple of horses you continue to race. You don't cancel.
Okay, but how many times have we seen tracks cancel for dirt racing because there are so many breakdowns in the morning? And it's a way bigger problem on dirt. It's just undeniable. I'm not saying synthetic's perfect.
Well, I'm just going to say 1 million horses run on dirt and 10,000 run on synthetic. So maybe if you look at the study this month, because all of them, they died at Woodbine. Right now it's worse at Woodbine. So yes, I mean, if you want synthetic back like Santa Anita, if you want synthetic back like Keeneland, I'm sure. And by the way, I'm in 100% agreement that it should be a third surface. I have big issue with New York thinking 4 months a year they're going to go to synthetic over. What do you do with all the stakes? What do you do with the preps? What do you do with that? And where are they going to get these horses? Tell me where they're going to get these horses.
Woodbine.
Really? Let me tell you why you're wrong, Joe. Okay?
Why?
I'm going to have fun with this. This is good. I'm going to actually set it up on why you're so wrong.
Please.
Tell me, Joe, how Woodbine deals with HISA.
They don't.
They don't. All
right.
So all of a sudden, all these trainers that don't have to deal with HISA, that can run on Lasix and do things differently, all of a sudden they're going to jump in, every single one of them, and they're all going to come in. No chance.
I mean, when the alternative is sitting on your horse all winter, I think some of them will come down.
You know what?
Deal with it.
They're sitting on their horses now.
Right. And if they have a synthetic track within a couple 100 miles.
December 10th, I put a lot of my Woodbine horses away. I'm sure John does too. And we bring them back in April.
Right.
So,
but if you're asking me as an owner,
Joe, they can go to Turfway. They don't.
Yeah, it's a longer ship. That's a much longer ship than Belmont.
But also, but we're New York, New Jersey guys. So I would rather have horses running in New York, where the purses aren't the same as Turfway, but they're still good purses, and the competition's a lot easier than doing anything else and giving them 4 months off, where maybe I don't think they need to have the time off.
Well, first of all, I'm from New York. I live in Florida. That's number one. All right.
Well,
So
for the record, you're a Florida resident for tax purposes, right?
I always say
we want to make sure we say that.
no, I'm Mike from Queens, not Mike in
Right.
Queens. I'm Mike from Queens. So that's very important. So listen, I'm not a New York guy anymore with racing or a Kentucky guy. You've seen me criticize Kentucky races for hurting the sport. I went, me and Senator Damon had a ball going back and forth. So I'm not afraid to say that. But I don't know. I mean, listen, purse money is important, right? I mean, when they're running for 120,000 maidens versus a $40,000 or $50,000 maiden, it's a difference. And John, I don't know if you've come across this in the winter in New York, but how many times do you have a horse targeted for a 1 1/8 race and Todd calls me up and says, you know how many entries? One.
Yeah.
You.
Yep. I get it. Yeah.
I mean, come on. I mean, West Point gets into all the races, Joe.
But that's another argument for bringing synthetic racing, because the synthetic fields are almost always, the dirt fields are abysmal in Aqueduct in the winter. You need to infuse that horse population with some new blood. That's an argument for more synthetic racing.
But do you think, how many, give me a top stallion, Joe, when you get a chance. Give me a top stallion.
Into mischief.
Okay. What about Curlin? He's a good stallion?
He's all right. Yeah.
Gun runner decent? I want you to go look up Gun Runner and Curlin's stats on synthetic and also his stats on turf. They're horrific. Curlin, you couldn't name a Curlin turf horse if I gave you $1 million right now.
Oh, but what does that mean? Like the synthetic horses in the winter, they're not running. They're not grade 1 races.
Me, John, and West Point are buying horses at sales for $1 million and $1.2 million and $1.5 million, and we're going to put them on synthetic so they can come in last.
No, listen. There's the horses that you're buying for $1.5 million. If they're running in New York in the winter, I got news for you. They're not great horses to begin with, and maybe they could use synthetic.
I don't know. I mean, you ever hear of the Gotham? You ever hear of the Jerome? You ever hear? I mean, I've won these races. You ever hear of? Now those races are going to be on synthetic, guys.
Maybe.
Oh, well.
Maybe. But that being said, but that being said, there is an appetite for synthetic racing in the United States.
Okay.
There absolutely is an appetite for it. I mean, that's why, it's one of the reasons why Turfway is always over full, is because, granted, their purses are good, but also.
So I'm just curious, if Turfway purses with 30,000, I think the appetite might be the money.
Yeah, no question. But New York purses aren't going to be 30,000 though either on the synthetic.
I mean, listen,
I get it.
We're in agreement. Yeah. I'm all for. In fact, I think it's important to train on synthetic.
Right.
Like that wear and tear. Train on synthetic and work on 1 day a week on the dirt, but train on synthetic. I'm all for that. And I've had conversations with O'Rourke. I want both. Yeah. And by the way, if there's 4, and by the way, this is very important, Joe. If it starts December with synthetic, you can't turn a condition book on November 30th to all synthetic when you had grass, dirt, and synthetic for 6 months. And then when you come back in April, May, June, you got only synthetic horses there. There's a lot more. This is the problem with racing. We think only in this small bubble. What does it take? Like you said, Woodbine. Yes, some would go there, but would you agree that some trainers won't want to deal with HISA?
Sure.
Probably, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
But it's not like
it's like me. I don't want to run synthetic. If I have a synthetic, when I go synthetic, when they can't run dirt and turf. How's that sound?
I get it. Yeah. No, I understand. I mean, those aren't the kind of horses you're buying. Those aren't the kind of horses that top owners are looking.
That West Point's buying. That's
we're looking for the Derby, looking for Derby Oaks horses. You're not looking for synthetic horses, but there is a marketplace for people who are looking to have.
But John and Joe, you have seen, as much as I talk, right. I'm buying horses in France. I'm buying horses in Japan. I'm buying Dubowis and Luke de Vegas and Siunis. Why am I doing that?
Right.
Because I'm getting prepared more than anybody. As I'm talking that I don't want it, I'm also preparing 2 years from now when it's here.
Sure.
I just don't want it. And guys, don't get me wrong. I don't want it as the only surface. That's all.
Right. Yeah. That's fine. And we're not saying it should be the only one. I think Joe said it's a good third surface.
But it's replacing an abysmal product. Yeah. Like it's a terrible product in the winter at Aqueduct. Those dirt races are not filling, like you said. Right. So why not shake things up and try something different?
But that's why we want to have these conversations. Actually, that's why we love having you on the show, because we can have these conversations with you about it.
But Joe, I'm going to say this. having it one way to the other way is not going to solve the problem either. I'm just telling you.
Okay.
All right.
If
I
you-
think that's in general.
If
Yeah.
you split it, I actually think that's the best solution.
Yeah, I mean, the only concern about that is, are you cannibalizing those races? Like, or instead of just having one horse population that could run on one surface? I have a question about California racing.
No, I just want to say one thing though. Just remember, Gulfstream has turf, right? They have dirt and they have synthetic. So I can get that all in one place. I mean, I can just, and by the way, if the race doesn't go, I can move them to another surface and things like that. And I love about Gulfstream is when it rains on the turf, guess what they do? They move it to the synthetic.
Yep.
Right. Well, and that's what Belmont's going to be 9 months out of the year. So we're going to get that there too, for the most part.
8 months, but you December,
Yeah.
April. Just so you know.